Hi, Sushila. We can start, please.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Okay, let's see. Okay, thank you for your reactions. Um, Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone who managed your time to be here in this event, Indigenous Women Weaving Path towards COP28 workshop seminar. I am Sushila from Nepal and your moderator today for this program. Very happy to have you all here and to welcome you here in this event. You know, United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC, Conference of Party COP28 is approaching closer. And this is high time to consolidate our voices, issues, and experiences on climate change impact initiatives to inform upcoming COP28 happening in Dubai pretty soon. So we are here to create this space to understand better the COP and sharpen our tools to advocate for our collective and individual rights, ensuring climate justice as Indigenous people, especially for Indigenous women and girls and all the intersectional group who have differential yet severe impact in contrary to the minimum contribution we had to this global threat. Instead, we are solutions and we offer unique solution with our Indigenous traditional knowledges, practice, and skills to balance nature and human ecosystem. We need to be aware and be informed about the global decision spaces like this UNFCCC COP to make sure we are not left behind and our voice are heard. So here we reflect our initiatives, know our global process, and link our ways of life and take the necessary step. That is why today we are discussing in what is the COP and how Indigenous women advocate. Let's build this space together and let's take this step together. For creating the safe space and inclusive space is equally important. So there's why I hope you have already gone through the presentation that was displayed earlier, that we have the interpretation. So I won't be repeating this one. This session will be recorded and already has started recording. If there is any inconvenience at your level to be recorded due to any security reason or any other personal reason, please let us know in the chat box. And the pictures, time-to-time pictures, and your phrases in this workshop seminar will be taken. If you have any concern, thank you for letting us know in the chat box as well, both the consents or any concern you have for taking the picture or posting the codes. And also there will be, if there is any questions, comments, and additions or complementary what we will be discussing here, please raise your hand with the symbol located at the end of the Zoom or post it in the chat box. We will have very dedicated session for Q&A, question and answer. Let's be respectful towards each other, which is very important value and principle that Indigenous peoples carry with us. And at the end, please do not forget to introduce yourself in the chat box with the name, organization, and country. So with this, I welcome you all once again in this seminar workshop from the different corner of the world. Very happy to have you all here. And we are looking forward for very interactive contribution in this workshop, because this is the platform where we build our agenda together. So moving ahead, I would like to invite our sister Hortensia Simone for the invocation. Sister, the floor is yours.
Gracias, Suchila.
Thank you, Suchila. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you. First of all, I want to thank the FEME team for giving me this opportunity to open this space energetically. Every day, life gives us an opportunity to practice all of our knowledge, principles, and values that we've inherited from our ancestors. And from this knowledge and practice, we are invited constantly to display our values in practice in every space. And here from Guatemala, I have lit a candle so that this whole process of preparation and dialogue and construction also is accompanied by the illumination of this light and the warmth of the fire when it's cold outside. The truth is that our ancestors taught us to begin each session, each work that we do, to begin with gratitude. So this dialogue that we're going to have is a space in which we're going to be looking for the well-being of all peoples, all women and men, girls and boys. And with this light, we are symbolizing that illumination in the same way that our ancestors taught us. She's now speaking in her language. Good morning, Creator. Good morning, Mother Earth. Good morning, Father Air. Grandmother Moon, Grandmother Water, Grandfather Sun, Grandfather Fire. Thank you once, twice, 3 times for all of this energy, for the life and health of each person, each sister and brother who is connected here. This process of building dialogue and reflection also allows us to find the path forward that we need as Indigenous peoples to arrest the negative effects of climate change. We know that climate change is the result of our own attitudes and changes, and there are many situations that are not in our hands. But we are grateful for this opportunity, and we ask for all the strength and energy for all of these people present so that we can be involved and connected with this process in one way or another. May every word, every phrase, every thought be expressed in accordance with the desire to have a better life for all peoples. And may all of this wisdom and knowledge that we have received from our ancestors be a contribution to this new form of life. Let us continue to connect ourselves with Mother Earth, with Father Air, with Grandmother Moon, and Grandfather Fire, Grandfather Sun. We ask for much strength so that all of this experience that the Sisters of FEME have can be shared. We are grateful that they're willing to share their knowledge with other sisters who are anxious to learn. Thank you to our ancestors for this opportunity. And We pray that all participants can enjoy this moment and this experience, and that all of the obstacles may melt away so that we can meet our goals without so many difficulties. We place in the hands of the universe all of the goals and objectives of this space, and may we work in the most positive way. Thank you once, twice, 3 times, and may all go well. Thank you, sisters. May the energies of the universe embrace each one of you wherever you are. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Orentencia, for illuminating the light and sharing the warmth, connecting us with our Mother Earth, our ancestor, our leaders, and paving the path and overcoming all the struggles, all the barriers we will be encountering in the future. With your connecting all our sisters, brothers from the world to who are here in this workshop, we hope we will definitely overcome the challenges and bring our voices stronger to the COP28. Thank you. So, just going through this, I just noted few of us have introduced ourselves in the chat box. Thank you for all who have introduced. If not, please introduce yourself in the chat box with name, organization, and country, so that we know and utilize our minimum time we have, knowing with who we are in the room in via chat box. Thank you all. So with this, we will have today the opening remarks followed by keynote presentation, and then we will have discussions and question answer session after the keynotes, and then we will close the program. And together with we have already passed like 15 minutes, so we have 1 hour and 15 minutes more to go together, and and utilize this shared spaces more effectively and efficiently, so that we can build the solidarity and one voice of Indigenous peoples and Indigenous women. So hope you have already reviewed the concept note and the agenda, which has been shared with the invitation. Going through the opening remarks by Simon Steele, Executive Secretary of UNFCCC. So this will be the video message. We are going to play the video with the opening remarks. So Mr. Simon was appointed as Executive Secretary by the United Nations Secretary General on 15th August 2022, and he served as Senior Minister in the government of Grenada from 2013 till June 2022, holding the portfolio of Ministry of Climate Resilience and the Environment for 5 whole years. He served as a Ministry of Education and Human Resource Department, Minister of State with responsibility of Human Resource Development and Environment, as a Parliamentary Secretary within the Ministry of Agriculture, Land, Forestry and Fisheries. So he has been engaged in a different decision-making forums. Hence, let's go through his opening remarks. I will request our communication team for playing the video. Thank you.
Thank you for convening this timely seminar as we rapidly approach COP28. We do not hear enough from those most affected, and the experiences, values, and knowledge of Indigenous peoples, especially Indigenous women, are vitally important in shaping global climate goals. Let me start by addressing what the COP process is. The Conference of Parties is the annual round of negotiations aimed at addressing climate change. It brings together government representatives and stakeholders from all regions and sectors of society, including Indigenous peoples and women. This year's meeting, COP28, will hold a global stocktake to assess our progress towards the goals outlined in the Paris Agreement. The reality is we are not on track. Greenhouse gas emissions continue to rise. The response to the stocktake by governments and stakeholders will be crucial in determining our success. We need greater ambition in pledges and accelerated action carrying them out. COP28 presents a crucial opportunity to course correct our path towards a stable climate and resilient societies. COP28 will also advance work on building resilience to climate impacts already happening. This includes defining a global goal for adaptation and measuring progress to the doubling of adaptation funding by 2025. The conference will also advance inclusive climate action through the empowerment and gender work programs. The reality is that achieving the goals of the Paris Agreement involves an unprecedented transformation of our societies. It is possible to achieve a just transition and bring benefits to all, leaving no one behind. Indigenous peoples are particularly vulnerable to the impacts of climate change. Your experiences and stories hold the key to holistic and transformative climate solutions. And you can provide a reality check as to how actions are working on the ground. The traditional knowledge of Indigenous peoples must be heard in global climate dialogues. The 2015 COP established the Local Communities and Indigenous Peoples Platform so that Indigenous peoples can help shape collective climate action. I encourage you all to engage with the work of the platform. It's an effective avenue that champions your voices and brings your unique wisdom into global collective climate action. Your participation is of paramount importance. Indigenous women, as time-honored custodians of nature, carry insights and values rooted in respect and symbiosis with nature. Indigenous women must be at the center of climate decision-making and action to make these perspectives the cornerstone of our global response. Indigenous women are often disproportionately affected by climate change. You continuously demonstrate resilience and innovation in finding solutions to the climate crisis. We must incorporate your solutions in national and international climate action to accelerate progress towards climate resilient societies. The Local Communities and Indigenous Peoples Platform and the UNFCCC Gender Action Plan can catalyse meaningful changes in climate policy by providing coherence across our work. The UNFCCC stands ready to work with all parties and other stakeholders in the management of Indigenous women in climate resilient action. I wish you a fruitful exchange and look forward to your invaluable contribution to the UN Climate Conference in Dubai in just over 5 weeks' time. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Simon Still, for providing overview of COP process and also providing the what are the agenda of this COP28, which is happening in Dubai, as mentioned, in just couple of weeks apart. So, as he mentioned, of course, Indigenous women should be the center of the climate action, and that is where we need to prepare ourselves well so that we can really put our agenda, our needs, and our impacts so that globally that our voices are heard. So with this, I thank again Mr. Simon Still for his recognition of Indigenous women's role in this whole climate negotiation process. So with this, we have another speaker, Miss Edna Kaptayo, a pocket woman from Kenya, and also an executive secretary of International Alliance for Indigenous and Tribal People of the Tropical Forest. She is a social development specialist, human and women rights advocate. She is actively engaged in UN and related international processes, focusing on advancing the issues and concerns of Indigenous people in Africa. Edna is a member of Advisory Council to the International Indigenous Women's Forum, FIMI, and also the Global Leadership School of Indigenous Women. Currently, she is a member of Kenya UN RED, Forest Carbon Partnership Facility, Readiness Task Force, and she is also part of Pavanka Fund. So with this, I would like to invite Edna. Edna, floor is yours.
Thank you, Sushila, and hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Hope you can hear me well. Sushila, I hope the audio is fine. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to share the little knowledge I have about my engagement in the Climate Change Convention, and hopefully it can provide you some insights as well guidance for those who will engage in the climate conference. I also support, I'm currently with Pawanka Fund, but also within the UN Climate Change Convention, I support the Africa region as the main representative to the local communities and Indigenous peoples platform, which the Executive Secretary for the convention has highlighted is an important platform for Indigenous people. So I'm the main representative for Africa. Please also check your region. Each region, 7 regions that we have, each has a main representative and an alternate member. So I'm going to share about the work about the Climate Change Convention, and also a few insights on what to expect and what are the key issues for COP28. What I urge you is also to make time. UNFCCC has a lot of resources that you can look at and read, and also get guidance in terms of how to understand it. You won't understand in one session. I've had 2 or 3 sessions with the Africa region, the youth and the Indigenous women, where we went through the Climate Change Convention itself. So I'll share PowerPoint. Don't bother reading, just listen to the few words, and I think I'll try to have my video off just in case connectivity is a challenge. And so basically talk about what the UNFCCC negotiation process is, the COP itself, and also the key issues for COP28, what is at stake, and also why it's important for Indigenous women, and also how to advocate. So we know that there are scientists, and we have this global platform that has been talking and mapping globally the changes in the climate for over decades, more than 40 years, before the 1900s. And also this platform is called the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, has been doing assessment reports that shows where we are at globally in terms of the temperatures. And the findings, they're now at 6th assessment report, where also at least Indigenous people also started to give contribution. And what it indicates is that global temperatures are rising, and I think even within your communities, you are able to see the different changes in climate, observing the day-to-day and over a long period. You have elders also saying that the drought, the heat is too much, it's not normal, or the rainfall is too much, and at the different times, the seasons are not normal. And this is because of the climate change that is being experienced globally. And so the Climate Change Convention as well is in place as well to address this global crisis. And why it's important, all of us share the same climate. So whether someone is in the US affecting climate, you're in Kenya or Cameroon or in Guatemala or Mexico, all of us share the same climate. And that's why one person or countries that are developed that are polluting the climate, are causing the emissions more for greenhouse gases, is impacting all of us. And that's why all governments have to come together to discuss about climate change. And this convention, since it's like a treaty, we have 198 parties, which is nearly universal membership that our governments all have signed to. And the ultimate objective is that they want to stabilize the atmosphere, and also prevent, catastrophic level of this temperature, so that human life can continue, biodiversity, all life forms in this planet can continue to exist, and also develop in a sustained way. So that is the main basic objective of the convention itself. And we also have, usually you hear a lot what they say, conference of parties. And so you need to know, what does the conference of parties mean when we are talking about the COP. And you've heard, so conference of parties is basically, so when you hear COP28, it means the 28th meeting. And conference of party refers to annual climate change conference, where world leaders, which is our governments, our presidents, the ministers, and also the technical people who negotiate, including also from civil societies and staff who join. But the conference of party is the gathering of these leaders and their delegations to agree on how to address climate change, because they all work together to come to a common understanding on how all of us globally can proceed. And they are called conference of parties because a party is someone who signs on to something, and our government are the only one with the mandate to sign on to the agreements that agreed, like the Paris Agreement, because we have two agreements under the Climate Change Convention, and the Paris Agreement, which is the latest from 2015, and also we have the Kyoto Protocol. So you can go read so that you understand what are these protocols, because it has important information and you need a lot of time to go through them, and it takes time to understand. And of course, as Indigenous peoples organizations, we also participate with other civil society. You have religious organization, the media, a lot, even business, those in the private sector participate in the climate change process. And of course, since 2015, since the Paris Agreement came into place, which was a new agreement because countries realized the Kyoto Protocol, the previous agreements were not working, and they needed a more stronger agreement so that countries can forge new ways to address climate change. And so when they started it, we had a lot of discussions on how also to finance climate change. How can countries also work around adaptation and mitigation to climate change, and also how they can develop in a sustainable way, because even developing countries, least developed countries are also working to develop. What you need to know about COP, it's hosted by different country each year, but it rotates based on regions. So this year it's considered like Asia. So it moves based on the UN region. So sometimes it's Africa, it moves to Pacific, it moves to Europe, So this time it's Asia, so that's why it's in Dubai. So each country each region has an opportunity to host, so it rotates, and the region decides on where who bids and votes on who can host. And since conference of the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change started, we've had 31 years since. So they've been meeting for 31 years to decide on how to address climate change, and also for Paris Agreement, it will be marking 8 years since it was in 2015. So basically, just to know about the Kyoto Protocol and the Paris Agreement, the Kyoto Protocol was just legally binding only for the developed countries, where they were supposed to work around reducing their emissions. And amendments were made for the Kyoto Protocol, and the discussion was also held around it. And these were countries like USA, all those big countries that are emitting more, that are supposed to reduce their emission. The developed countries, them, US being one of the biggest emitter. And then the Paris Agreement, the one that has the most signatories now, calls for renewed agreements and commitments. But this one also, even though it had the demarcation that there's developed and developing countries, but each country really, they decided that has to take action, whether you are developed, least developed. And this is through a new commitment that they call the nationally determined contribution, where each country, all of our countries actually, are indicating how they are working to do the adaptation or mitigation and address climate change. So 2020, each country developed and also submitted to the UNFCCC. So go to the UNFCCC website. When you check the nationally determined contribution, it will show you what your country has submitted. And also every 5 years, they're supposed to report on it. But in between, countries can adjust and review their nationally determined contribution. For instance, I'm from Kenya, and Kenya has had its review even last year, where we've been able to contribute. But also, not under it, countries also have other strategies for climate change in the forest sector. They have national adaptation plans. They have national mitigation action plans, NAPAs. So countries always have different action plans apart from NDC. So you need to understand and know all of them. But also, more importantly, the Paris Agreement as well talked about having finances for developing countries to be able to build climate resilience, and also to develop and also to address different issues. And that's when also the Green Climate Fund was also discussed, and also the setup as well for having a financing mechanism within the climate change that is stronger and going to tackle climate change, even though we have different finance options for the least developed, the developing, like adaptation fund. We have the least developed countries fund, and those that target only small island states. So it's good to understand also, but finance is also a huge discussion, because it's a whole other process and has its own other structures in place. So basically, this is how a climate change convention is set up, the Conference of Parties. So you have at the highest level a plenary, and meetings organized around plenary. It's the overall big one, and then meetings are organized around either contact group, and then we have sessions where you have the informal consultation and the formal and the informals. And this is where now, and the contact group is where you have the technical different under the subsidiary body for implementation, and also where you have discussion on technological advice, and different agendas fall under this category. In the plenary, that's where the Conference of Parties, that's where you have the meeting of parties to the Kyoto Protocol, and also the meeting of parties to the Paris Agreement, and the subsidiary bodies, because there are two. So it's important to know those, because maybe you're interested in following an agenda item on adaptation. So you need to know which area it falls into, because specific contact group meetings are set up based on those agenda items. And the informals usually, so the plenary, it's open for all of us. and the contact group is open. But sometimes government can decide, because there are parties and observers. So there are two levels, and so the pink badge is the parties. So they have access to all negotiation. But sometimes as observers, we are considered as observers as indigenous peoples. We don't have access to different meeting spaces. We don't have access to different meeting spaces, and so we have to, sometimes it's closed. But we have strategy where we have sometimes indigenous people having a party badge where your government can accredit you. And it's important to note, to participate in this process as observer, you need to be accredited. Your organization or someone else organization that can register you needs to be accredited to the convention. And we still have very few indigenous organizations that have the status. So it's important, if you're working around climate change, and so to work to ensure that you at least get accreditation. You can help other indigenous people participate if you are not able to participate in person or have resources, because that is also the challenge. And so there's a lot of also other additional processes, because the contact group and the drafting group and these other informals is where a lot of decisions and consensus is built, because when they come to the plenary, they've achieved some form of decision regarding climate change, and sometimes the friend of the chair, they can open up to other non-state actors, the observers, but sometimes they can be closed. So it's dependent on the chairs and those leading those meetings who are government people. So usually the most important thing, this is to know the agenda of a conference, and usually this is how it's structured, or it can be in a different way, but usually you have an agenda, which is weekly program, which is usually in the UNFCCC website, and also daily there's a program released. So that is what you use as your tool to know what is the meeting I'm attending today, apart from also the list of events, which are formal, or the other ones that are in the green section, because there are two zones within the climate change process, the blue zone and also the green zone. So blue zone is those who are accredited and have badges, so they can attend in the negotiation rooms if it allows for observers. And so it gives you a lot of opportunity to engage. And then there's a number of workshops, sometimes, and smaller events that require additional registrations as well. So usually it's important to know the agenda. I've talked about this, and I think you can look at it. Having the COP itself is the highest decision making, and usually chaired by the presidency. So in this case, the one from Dubai nominated, since they're the host, they usually nominate a president who sits, and already that's known. And then you have the meeting of parties for the different agreements, for the Kyoto and also for the Paris Agreement. So if you see CMA, you know it's the Paris Agreement meeting discussions. And then if you see SABSA, you know it's the subsidiary body for scientific and technological advice. So they are the ones tackled with providing technical information. So SABSA also has a chair and its sessions as well, discussing different agenda items on adaptation, on mitigation. And then the SBI is the subsidiary body on implementation. This provides a lot of assessment and review of how implementation is. They'll talk about issues of finance as well under there. And then we have the different working groups.
Hello. Oh,
Sorry,
something
I
happened.
don't know where you lost me. It's connection. So I don't know where you lost
So
me.
yeah, we were just discussing about, okay, here we go.
Where you lose me? What do you mean? Can you hear me, Sushila?
Yes,
Can you hear me?
I mean, yeah, I think we were just discussing about we didn't lose you for long. It was like a couple of split seconds, so we can continue with what you were in. Yeah.
Oh,
Thank you.
yeah. So thank you, Sushila. So hopefully we can maintain stability until I finish. But we'll provide you with this PowerPoint, but also employ you to read, so also you get to understand more. So the subsidiary bodies are also important because there are a number of meetings that happen. I think there's a confusion. Okay, so it's important to know about the subsidiary bodies work and also what they do, because a lot of discussions happen under each of the subsidiary body meetings in the different sessions, and this you'll see in the agenda. SABS and SBI are permanent bodies within the UNFCCC, so they are always there and they carry out discussion. And our governments also have representatives who sit and engage in these subsidiary bodies from each region, because they also have that, because they elect chairs, and also the 7 vice presidents, like for the bureau, comes from the 7 sociocultural region: Asia, Africa, Pacific, Latin America. So it's good to know who from your region is, for instance, the head of the group of negotiators. For instance, Africa has the Africa group of negotiators. Latin America and the Caribbean also have their head of group of negotiators, the person who's chairing. So you need to know who's there, and the information is available online. And also you need to know which of your government ministries engaging. Mostly it's the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change or Forestry, depending on how your government is structured out. And you need to know, more importantly, your focal point to the Climate Change Convention. Each country has a focal point. Each country has an agenda, are supposed to designate or have already designated a national gender focal point to address gender issues within climate change. So you need to know those important focal points for your region, because also they help a lot when it comes to negotiation, and because it's government who negotiate and make decisions. And so we have to advocate through also our government and feed into their statements, and also get their support from the region and also from in country. So also there's the secretariat, which is basically like an organization. You also usually have the team that supports with reporting, with project implementation, with finance. So the convention itself has the secretariat as well, and they provide assisting mechanism. And an important component in the secretariat in the adaptation unit is where our local communities and indigenous peoples platform, the platform sits. And there we have the LCIPS team that also are supporting indigenous people's facilitative working group to advance indigenous issue within the convention. So it's important as well to note that. I've talked about the negotiating forums where they make the formal decisions, which is the plenary, and all these other negotiating. So since we are also like actors, we are observers, we participate as observers, you need to know with the climate change conventions, we have the negotiating groups. So under the 5 UN groups, so there are several of
We lost Edna again. Edna, are you here?
Apologies, because connection is a challenge. Sorry for that. So you need to know that we have the group of negotiators for each region, the 5 UN regions, and also other coalitions are also under it. So even Africa is part of the group of 77, and China. EU also is a negotiating group on its own. You have what we call the umbrella group that has Australia, Canada, and so forth, New Zealand. No areas we have indigenous people, and also most of these negotiators look around different aspects. For Africa, for instance, they prioritize talking about issues of lack of resources, vulnerability to extreme events, poverty issues. The other EU would look at how they are giving resources to other countries or transitioning to clean fuels. So you need to know this group of negotiators, because these coalitions are important, because they're the ones who make decisions on how climate change can be tackled. So Sushila, in any case, if you hear me drop off, alert me. So I'll see if the additional connection can help that I have. So in terms of how Indigenous people engage, we do have a forum. So Indigenous people's organizations are recognized as one of the constituencies. I think we have 9 or more constituencies within the Climate Change Convention, and Indigenous peoples are considered a constituency. And we have a name, so that name is considered for representing Indigenous people. So it's the International Indigenous Peoples Forum on Climate Change. And we'll have our focal point, LACPA, who I think will join the FIMI training as well on climate change, I think either tomorrow or day after tomorrow. So we participate as IIPFCC, which is Indigenous People Constituency, formally recognized by the UNFCCC. So we speak as one voice under this constituency. And under the constituency, we usually have a technical team and also the thematic teams, which follow different agendas. There are those who follow Indigenous women issue or gender issues and youth issues. We have those who follow adaptation, issues of climate finance, issues of global stock tech, and I'll talk about it a bit. So the 7 regional, we have Indigenous people from all the 7 regions globally, just say globally, participating, and we all participating in our caucus like this. So we get assigned a room by UN as one constituency where we do our own preparatory meetings every morning before the conference, but also IPFCC and the co-chair, and this year because it's in Asia, so Grace Balawag from Tepteba is the co-chairs, assisted by a co-chair from Malaysia and also from North America and also Africa, support other co-chairs who have been before supporting them. So we usually have a tradition of having 2 co-chairs. And of course, our focal points, main focal point being LACPA, but also having a focal point from Latin America because it's English. So we do English, Spanish, try to do that to coordinate. And so we all consolidate and give voices under this caucus and submit our statements as one voice during the Climate Change Convention from the different agenda items and also during the opening statements, and we agree on speakers jointly. And so this is our platform, and also there's other constituency like the Women and Gender constituency, which also is an ally for Indigenous women. And with FIMI, they've been partnering since COP21 to have Indigenous Women's Day, where Indigenous women speak on different issues at each COP. So it's an important platform. So how can, as Indigenous women, you engage in the COP itself? You need to engage first to be prepared for negotiation, and this is by engaging in the national processes. Each government usually has and even civil society organization, they have multi-stakeholder platform and also preparation meeting where the country prepares the position. So for instance, Kenya does a meeting before COP where they do a Kenya position so that when they reach COP, before COP starts, they meet with the other Africa governments and they give their position. Each country, the other 53 give their position, and then they decide on one position for Africa so that Africa also has areas where it speaks with one voice, even though each country can raise and also contribute their position individually, but mostly they do as a region. So it's good to understand what your government is prioritizing and what they're engaging in, when are they holding the preparatory session, and most of them have started now, and they convene stakeholder consultation. So you need to plan to attend and engage in these processes or give submission You need to know who are the negotiating team, and internally as well, within the Indigenous women's movement, you need to plan, understanding the climate issues, plan and arrange yourself in the different areas of themes. Who will follow climate finance? Who will follow adaptation? Who will help with communication, for instance? And with preparing this, it can help you have an idea of what to take. Then you don't go to COP without an agenda. And the Indigenous people, just before COP, they usually have a 2-day discussion session, even though every day of the 2 weeks, there is morning caucus. And sometimes when need be, the thematic groups or the caucus can decide to convene in the evening if the room is available. So it's important also to engage in Indigenous people's preparatory processes as Indigenous women, because that's where you can also lend your voice and give input as Indigenous women and contribute to the statements. As well, the strategy again was to ally with other constituency, because we have women and gender constituency and also the youth constituency, the Yungo, who also support a lot of Indigenous people statements at the convention process. Also, you can participate during the COP, in the plenary. You're not speaking unless you are selected by your constituency, but also submit information, including case study, to the Secretariat and reports, because they compile a lot of information, including the local platform on Indigenous people's knowledge. The LCIP also has a portal where we can share a lot of our reports and information about our work, or give submissions when they call for submission on how Indigenous people are informing curricula on climate change, for instance, how you are undertaking adaptation using your traditional knowledge. So it's important to also share information. So within the COP, there's formal side events and also the informal, not within the blue zone. And so that is also a platform to participate and share and give your voice and inputs as Indigenous people. And advocacy with parties is important, because at the end of the day, they make decisions, and they're the ones who agree on that. So it's important to know your government, even from your region, because that's where you can lobby and also give statements and seek their support in advancing Indigenous people's rights within the Climate Change Convention. So basically, the convention itself this year has a number of key items that's being discussed, and one element we have is the global stocktake, that is a process that that is a process that they are trying to address the climate change issues, but also look at, in terms of countries, where are we at in terms of progress after the Paris Agreement. And this global stocktake is a process that takes place it's supposed to take at 5-year cycle, but now we are into the second year where they're doing the assessment to look at, are we reaching the, are countries really fulfilling their commitments? Are they addressing climate change? And also getting feedback from Indigenous peoples globally. They're also getting feedback from Indigenous people globally. I don't know if you can see my screen, but I think it says loading, so it's taking a lot of time.
Yeah, Edna, we cannot see your screen.
Yeah, because it says loading. That's what I've noticed.
Okay, here it. Oh,
hopefully it can. Yeah, hopefully it can show. Let's see. But so since the past 2 years, there's been a lot of work with the global stocktake, and Indigenous people have been giving input. So countries have been giving feedback on what they are doing to reach climate change, but also assessment is being undertaken to see what are the gaps in terms of why didn't country meet the climate change? Why didn't they meet the commitments they made? So COP28 itself and also COP29 also provides an opportunity because they'll have dialogue still. It provides an opportunity for you as Indigenous women to also, because they have what we call the World Cafe and also dialogue. As Indigenous women, you can engage in these discussions, even through caucus, to provide your insights and input to these findings, initial findings that they'll present, but also importantly to see, to give input and to assess the gender responsiveness of these stocktake outcomes, you know, and also giving how can this be enhanced, you know, so that the findings and recommendation can speak to Indigenous women's issues. Then we have a new goal was started in terms of discussion, the global goal on adaptation. And this is a discussion that has been going on now with several workshops being undertaken. Even this year, several workshops, I think more than 2, on how adaptation can be addressed and how that can be done holistically, because there's a lot of complaints even from Indigenous people that a lot of focus was given to mitigation. And you know, measures on mitigation, a lot of it doesn't support building resilience of people.
We lost you, Edna, again. Hello, Edna?
Yeah.
Oh,
yes, yeah. I can hear you. So, so global goal on adaptation. So it aims really to build that collective action on climate change, focus on adaptation itself alone. So there've been a lot of workshops really to develop a framework that includes issues on how to finance adaptation and have the 5-year and also a longer term framework outlook that countries can all agree to. So a lot of developing countries are supporting this global goal on adaptation. But I think Indigenous women's voices needs to come in to really call for a global goal on adaptation that is long-term, but also that is aimed at really having stronger indicators and targets that respond to issues of adaptation. We also have a work plan on agriculture and food security. And discussions will also be around this. At COP28, countries did agree, will agree on having a new 4-year work plan on agriculture. So this is an opportunity as Indigenous women to advocate for Indigenous people's food systems as one of the approaches that is sustainable and can be supported. So you need to really engage in that because it was only work plan on agriculture and food security, but currently the work plan will also tackle broader because
hello, Edna. Hello. Hello, Edna. Are you with us? Hello.
I don't know if you can share from your end,
Edna?
but you can hear me?
Maybe, Yeah, we lost you for a while. Maybe we can stop sharing the presentation and we'll just hear from you. And we will share, as you mentioned, we will share the presentation to the all participant present here later.
Sure.
Will it be okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm only left with one slide. So in terms of climate finance, countries committed to give $100 billion by 2020, which has not happened. And so within the convention itself, so what as Indigenous women you can call for is really to call that they need to replenish and provide climate finance, especially to developing countries, and also finance that is adequate, predictable, and also support for countries, but also targeting gender issues in addressing climate change. A key element as well discussed that also made progress is the loss and damage. So COP28 is supposed to operationalize a loss and damage fund because we incur losses when climate change impacts our communities. And so there'll be discussion on how the funding arrangement will be like. So for Indigenous people, the most important for Indigenous women is to call for the fund to be set up under the guiding principle of the UN Convention framework, and also that includes respect for rights of Indigenous peoples, including overall human rights and also gender equality when they're setting up this funding. And also what element we've been also calling for climate finance as Indigenous people is direct access window for Indigenous peoples, because we are on the front lines of climate change, but we also have the solutions. So calling for that direct access of financing for Indigenous people to respond to climate change. A lot of talks as well is around the phasing out of fossil fuel. So you'll see here discussion about the just energy transition, because the fossil fuel sector, we need in transportation, manufacturing, a lot of our production systems globally for developed countries and developing countries require use of fossil fuel, which is the biggest contributor to climate change. But countries are talking about to move to renewable energies, more clean energy. But for Indigenous people, we know a lot of challenges has been faced where they're creating dams or they're creating wind farms or renewable energy plants and evicting Indigenous people. If it's a lot is happening in Indigenous people's land. So we need to advocate for right energy partnership and climate justice in this just transition, not only globally, but also at our local level, national level, and that they should be centered on issues of gender care and also social protection. Another element is on issues of technology, talking about technology transfer that can help in terms of climate change, building resilience and supporting countries to respond to climate change. So there's a lot of talk of technology, but we need to call for culturally appropriate technology and also support to countries, but also to communities, and not technology that doesn't respond to us. So another element is that the COP presidency with the NDCs, since they always report, so they don't want to shame countries and say, oh, Mexico or Kenya or Uganda, you did not implement well your national determined contribution. No, countries usually operate around diplomacy. And so countries this year were supposed to submit the updated NDCs. So check, your government definitely worked on it and submitted in September this year, just this past month, how they are working to meet the goal. So they'll submit and that will be compiled and shared during COP that countries are making commitment, but no country will be shamed that their commitment is not strong enough. No. So it's good to know about your NDC. And more importantly as well, we know under Climate Change Convention, we have the Gender Action Plan. But at COP27 last year, they did a midterm review on the progress in terms of how are countries implementing the Gender Action Plan, which talks about, and you need to look at the gap because it also talks about Indigenous women and that governments are also supposed to support Indigenous women's engagement in climate change, even having Indigenous women in their delegation, you know, but we know this hasn't been met. Designating also, it was a 5-year plan, so it was overall, but each country was supposed to adopt, but they are not forced. And in terms of the action plan, it had a number of priority areas, 5 areas that talks about how a country supporting the knowledge, capacity building and communication, ensuring gender balance and women's leadership in climate change, and especially in the national delegation, ensuring issues of gender in policy, and also supporting gender responsive implementation of climate change, and looking at how monitoring of climate change is done. And different all have a role in terms of ensuring the gender action plan is implemented. But when they were reviewing in last year, they did not allow women and gender constituency and even other actors to engage in that review process. So there was a lack of substantive outcome, and the women gender constituency highlighted this. Of course, there were a lot of decisions that were generated, but in 2024, next year, is when submissions are required on how countries are making progress towards implementing the gender action plan. So that's the challenge, and it's hanging there. But I think that is something that Indigenous women can still highlight to mention why gender is important. And even though it's in 2024, the key areas we feel are missing. And then, of course, we have 4 pillars under the discussion at COP that the presidency decided on. So go read what they mean. They came up with the 4 pillars and also a new one that came in. So looking at how to fast track transition to low carbon world. And this is where we have the just energy transition, fixing climate finance. So a lot of climate finance discussion will be held there, focusing on people livelihoods and lives. That will be discussion a lot on adaptation and also mitigation. Then there'll be discussion on full inclusivity, having everyone on board, and also a new theme they talked about, health, recovery, and peace, and how these are important in climate resilience. So the COP presents an opportunity for you as Indigenous women to amplify your voice and also showcase Indigenous women leadership in climate action and policy, and why they need you at the table. And of course, a lot of decisions around food and agriculture are receiving attention this year a lot. And for Indigenous women, traditional food system is an important area. And I think that is something you need to highlight while you're engaging. Finally, I think it's important to note that the Local Communities and Indigenous Peoples Platform, which is a body under UNFCCC, which
Edna,
works to, yes?
Edna, can we wrap up now slowly?
Yeah, I'm wrapping up, yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's okay. So UNFCCC, the platform is a body within UNFCCC created for Indigenous people and to help to strengthen knowledge and facilitate exchange of experiences and best practices in climate mitigation and adaptation. And of course, with a view to enhancing engagement of Indigenous people in climate policy and action. So we'll have the facilitative working group meeting prior to the COP from 25th to 28th November. And also during the COP, the first week, we have a number of events that you might be interested while you are, those who will participate. Maybe some will be webcast, I'm not so sure, but it's a gathering of knowledge holders and practitioners from Indigenous people who will be speaking at these events to share their knowledge on how are they adapting, addressing water issues, what are Indigenous technology to climate change, all in a view to showcase how we use our traditional knowledge to adapt to climate change and build resilience, and how the recommendations we have to policymakers, who are our governments, and to give off so that we can be able to influence the climate change space. Yeah. So that's all. Yeah, back to you, Sushila. I don't know if there are any questions. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Edna. First of all, sorry, there had been some interruption. Hope you still could follow some of the key highlights that Edna has presented. Of course, Edna has presented so well from very beginning of what is UNFCCC, CCC, and COP till what are the agenda. So she has highlighted what are the things, the terms, the platforms that we need to understand, and what are the key negotiation forums that impacts the way we live and the way we live in our society, our community, and so on. And also she has highlighted what we must know and how we can engage in this whole processes, and what are the structures where we can get into it. Also, she has highlighted further what Simon has mentioned earlier was about key issues at COP28 this year, which is happening in Dubai, and also call for actions, and also highlighting what can be the issues for Indigenous women in this COP28. So with this, I thank Edna for your very elaborated presentation. Before, I hope we have lots of queries, comments, or contribution to what Edna has presented, also to the FIMI, if there is any. As FIMI is also organizing the delegates to participate in COP28, and this is first step, or I will say initial step, to prepare ourselves better. As Edna mentioned, we need to have a better preparation to really present our voice. So with this, first, before we go to the discussion, can we have our video on? Can we have a group picture? May I request all of you to switch on your videos, please? Great. Okay, I see you. Let's have more. Great. So I will request our communication team to help us with the picture, please. Very nice. I see lots of familiar names here in the screen. I hope to see your picture, your faces. Nice. Yeah. Okay. Okay, great. Thank you. Can we have a picture, please? So we need to have two pictures. Thank you all. Hope our communication. Sorry. Okay. Hope our communication team has taken a very nice
The picture has been taken. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. So with this, the floor is open for any question, any comment, any remarks from your end. Anyone? I saw a comment in chat box which asked about the presentation and the what we call presentation and this keynote opening remarks. Hopefully after this session or day after tomorrow's session, we will be sharing all those recording and this to you. So with this, Amina, please. Due to time limitation, I will request all of you to keep your question to the point and concise, please. Thank you. Amina, floor is yours. I see Amina hand.
Bonjour à tous. Merci. Bonjour, merci Sushila. Merci à tout le monde, Edna et Monsieur Simon. Moi, j'avais juste une recommandation, c'est par rapport à la résolution 76 qui a été adoptée cette année concernant la santé des femmes autochtones et aussi par rapport au rapport du Forum permanent sur la santé. Donc, je voulais...
Amina?
Oui? Yes.
Sorry to interrupt you because I cannot hear in an English channel. Yeah. Is in
I
English
hope.
channel working? Yes. I'm in English channel and I cannot hear the interpretation. Are you hearing? Sisters who are in English channel, are you hearing the interpretation?
No. There is no English interpretation.
Oh, really?
No, even Ani.
Oh, okay. I don't know. I request one of our sisters to help this out because I think this is also important that Edna understands also. Hopefully this is for Edna. So, yeah.
I can
Okay,
do it in
Amina,
English.
please go ahead. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. So I was about saying thank you for Edna and Simon and Fimi also. I was just adding a recommendation is to take in consideration the resolution 76 of Organization of Health. Okay, it's about health of women, indigenous women, and we have to take this in our maybe recommendation during the COP. Because there is also another report from the UN Permanent Forum about holistic health. So please, if you can add some recommendation about health on and their effect on indigenous women. And also there is something else I have to add, a recommendation about so the recommendation about the good energy, because we can't in the name of good energy take out the land, to make the land grabbing against. They did the grabbing for extractive action, and now they are working on land grabbing by working on these good energies. So we have to be more to be and I want to give a concrete thank you, Edna, for your presentation, but I want to give you a concrete example of this good energy who are taking in consideration to make the land grabbing. I'm speaking about a community, Maasai community in the region of Narasha. They are geothermal central, and people are moving. They are moving people for this. So please, can you add some recommendation on those points? Thank you.
Thank you, Amina, for your recommendation. And as we are like, this is the pathway to pave our agenda. Hopefully, now we are taking the notes, and hopefully we will have you in our next workshop as well, so that we can jointly save the agenda. Definitely. And then if not, we have noted it here, and we have FEMI team here who is also taking the note. Edna, you have any response?
Yeah, I think she was giving a comment, but just to highlight, of course, resolutions, what indigenous people we always use is to see an outcome that is important for indigenous people, whether it's the UN Declaration on Rights of Indigenous People or other outcomes that we can use to link to our issues and advocate. And it's important to know that within UN, with climate convention, you go with the complaints, people will listen, but then it's important to use the same to structure into a decision, and to use the same outcome to call for whatever resolution that is responsive to indigenous people's issues. Because we know also there's the special rapporteur on environment rights, or what rapporteur on indigenous people's rights says. That's why also in the Just Transition, in the Right Energy Partnership, we are showcasing what can be a right energy partnership. Even though we know there are challenges with energy, we call on that and say Indigenous people are impacted with the displacement, when maybe the dam, the geothermal, which I'm aware of for a long time, and we've been advocating against such like energy partnerships that don't focus on people. So that's why we are calling for a right energy partnership, because as Indigenous people, we also need energy, but we can also do energy, renewable energy on our own, and showcase what a good example can be. Yeah. So thank you for your insights and appreciate it. Yeah.
Thank you, Edna. So we have shared for another question. I saw Kakai's as well. So can we hear both of yours if you still have? I see your comment in chat box as well. So let's go with Share first, and then we will come to Kakai. Share. Hello, Share. Are you there? Hello. Hello.
Oui, merci beaucoup. Je suis Chérie Feyer, je suis en RDC. Je participe à la COP27 à Niger. Le problème de décalage d'horaire nous a trompés sur l'heure du début de la réunion. Je me suis connectée un peu en retard, je n'ai pas suivi d'autres exposés. Mais ce que je voulais, ce n'est pas une question, mais c'est une contribution où je voudrais donner une recommandation sur la participation des femmes autochtones à la conférence. Comment nous pouvons faire pour créer une synergie, pour faire un plaidoyer robuste. Par exemple, nous, ici, à documenter les pratiques locales qui mettent en œuvre les femmes autochtones pour la lutte contre les effets du changement climatique, pour qu'elles puissent survivre face à la disparition de certains écosystèmes. Nous avons documenté ça durant toute cette année. Alors, comment est-ce que nous pouvons faire durant cette COP28 pour nous permettre de mettre au vu de tout le monde, démontrer à quel point les femmes autochtones climatiques. Alors, nous retrouver, nous qui allons participer à la COP, parce que moi, par exemple, j'ai déjà l'accréditation, je serai là, mais durant cette COP, comment nous allons, quelle trouver d'abord entre nous pour créer des messages à passer à la COP, pour que nous puissions partager nos expériences locales de lutte contre les changements climatiques. C'est ce que je voulais savoir. Parce que celle à mon coin, c'est grand quartier de conférences. Comment on peut faire pour créer la synergie d'un plaidoyer robuste. C'est ce que je voulais dire. Merci.
Hello. Can someone, Nella, can you, I don't know, if you can like summarize the question?
Ce n'était pas une question, c'était une recommandation. Je disais ceci. Nous participons à la conférence, mais d'une manière parfois éparpillée, où chacun fait son plaidoyer, chacun participe à un événement de sa manière. Je voudrais un lien ou un maître de nous retrouver pour pouvoir constituer un message où nous allons passer notre plaidoyer auprès des autorités des différents pays, des différentes régions qui seront à la conférence. J'ai dit, par exemple, nous ici en RDC, durant toute l'année, nous avons documenté les pratiques traditionnelles que les femmes autochtones sont en train de mettre en œuvre en guise de lutte contre les effets du changement climatique dans leur vie. Alors, nous avons besoin de présenter ça à tout le monde au cours de la COP28. Nous ne savons pas par quel moyen nous allons nous en sortir, par quelle voie nous pouvons présenter ça. Alors, les FIMICOM un partenaire qui nous finance aussi, un partenaire qui nous accompagne, s'il peut nous donner cette opportunité-là de partager ça pendant la conférence, ça serait aussi, ça sera une bonne chose. Alors, oui, ça sera une bonne chose. Oui, alors j'aimerais qu'on crée un canal, par exemple.
So I would like to know.
Des femmes conférences. Alors peut-être chaque matin, on peut savoir que c'est à cet endroit où nous allons nous retrouver pour passer nos messages, les différents messages des différents pays où un groupe de femmes autochtones va prendre aussi pour pouvoir présenter ça au
So what she basically said was that she would like to know, as women in the local communities, they've been working on different plans through the year, and they have recorded and they have tracked all these plans. So they would like to know how they can share these experiences through FEME and through the COP, because they've been working on these plans for a long time, and they like to know how to share this with the FEME, because they don't know. So far, they don't know how to do it. So that's basically what she suggested or recommended to you.
Okay, thank you, Cher, for your comments. Because of the different channels and interpretation mix-up, we could not follow your everything you mentioned, but we have that recording. We will go through it, and if there is any unaddressed one, we will get back to you. So maybe quickly sharing with you on this is like, we do have different community of practices like FEME. Climate change is one of the priority issue of FEME, where our different programs like lead the processes, engagement, and so on. And this is our institutional agenda. And we do like different community of practices as one. Second,
okay, je vais écrire une partie j'écris dans le chat.
She says she's gonna write something in the chat so that you know very well what she pointed out a while ago.
Thank you very much. That will be very, very helpful. If we cannot address it right now, we will definitely get back to you in our email together with all the like material of this convening. Thank you. With this, I will go to Kakai. Kakai, would you like to? Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Let's be concise. Thank you.
Yeah. Hello to everyone. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hello?
We can hear you, Kakai. Please go ahead.
Okay. Although I write on the chat box my question, particular to FEME, is there any thinking or plan for online engagement for those who are not in the actual or physical event of COP28?
Okay. Thank you, Kakai, for your question. Sisters from FEME, anyone, especially Nella, Naida, would like to respond on this, or Rabiatu would like to respond on this question, please? Hello. Am I audible? Okay.
Just Sushila,
Okay,
let me
I
jump
thought
in
like
before FEME.
please.
Just to say that Indigenous women need to know that there is a UN voluntary fund for Indigenous peoples that supports Indigenous people's participation now, even to climate change convention. Before they were funding only Human Rights Council, MRIP, and also the Permanent Forum. But now it's closed for this year, but it's something that they should know as an opportunity to try, even though it takes a few numbers. But I think for Indigenous women, it's important to know availability of such support to engage in the climate process, even in the Substar or the COP. So they support during the May, June, and the session COPs.
Also, Edna, before we respond, in your experience, as Kakai mentioned, is there any way to engage in this COP process, even if we could physically the distance from our own country?
I'm not so sure in terms of if it's being webcast, because it depends. If it's a negotiation room, sometimes they'll have the webcast for some specific events and some will not be if it's a decision making. Yeah.
Thank
So
you,
not so
Edna,
sure.
for this. Thank you. Yes,
Sí. Como un plan como tal para visibilizar todas las actividades.
A plan to make all the activities visible in the COP is kind of complicated because, as Edna says, we don't know if there's an online system, but the commitment we do have is that those who are participating in COP28 can share information about what's happening during the sessions so that any of the sisters that can't go can follow the discussion. Likewise, in the plans that we have as FEMI, we have a webinar after COP28, and our primary objective there is to invite Indigenous sisters, not just from FEMI, but from other collective groups, networks, and organizations, and partner organizations, so that they can share their experiences, lessons learned, what they were able to do through advocacy, and what they were able to achieve during COP. But also the challenges and the gaps that we have to overcome so that we can together identify strategies for the next sessions. My colleague Nadia, who led previous meetings, has said COP is not just from November to December in Dubai. It's going to happen all year through so many different events. So it's important to try to be aware of where the discussions and spaces are so that you can advocate in all of these spaces. And our commitment as FEMI is to share this information with you so that we can add synergies and strategic alliances with other organizations. Thank you, Suchila.
Yeah, thank you, Nella. So I hope this gives you some idea of how we engage with or without going to the COP. So this is like how to engage not only for the particular event, but in whole process of forming this process. Thank you, Nella, for this response. So any other questions from the floor, please?
Can I have a follow-up question?
Yeah, please go ahead, Kakai. Let's be concise.
Yes. What I mean is because we believe that FEMI has many network of women organizations. So to maximize this platform, can we have the online for those who are not attending? Online, specific, for example, if we have also to present our country situation on how this cope issues, that at the end, I'm expecting that when the women come together, there will be a specific action taken through statement of the online conference that will facilitate or hosted by FEMI, like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Kakai. So any quick reaction on Kakai's recommendation, please. Suggestion, please. Nadia, Aminatu, Rabiatu, sorry. Ornella.
But Sushila, maybe you can help me to understand better, because I think the suggestion is how to broadcast or how to have online, and that is the question or the suggestion. I really didn't the suggestion. I'm sorry.
Okay. Okay, her suggestion is whether we can have on participate online, especially in the events that FEMI will organize.
Okay. Regarding this, is not in our hands. It's more related to the main organizers. We are very happy that a side event that we proposed as FEMI was approved in the Indigenous Pavilion, but the main organizers, the international, this organization who leads this pavilion, they are the one who can give us the technical conditions, and we are waiting for more information. If it is possible, we hope that yes, but if not, like I was saying before, our way how we are going to share the information is through our social media. That is the commitment, and we are waiting for more technical details that we are going to receive in the next days. It's the only thing that I can say.
Yeah, thank you, Nella. I think with this, I hope, Kakai, you have some idea on like how things work, not only for Kakai, for all the participants here, all the partners representative here. So if there is a possibility, FEMI will be very happy to do so, to engage with you all. If not, then as mentioned, we need to follow our like social media. We have Twitter, we have Instagram, we have Facebook. Please do follow that. Let's keep in touch, and there will be an reorganizing where we can like build our agenda together and like bring like collective voice of all of our sisters and brothers as Indigenous people, and particularly for Indigenous women. With this, if there is any other queries, comments, recommendations from the floor, I see one comment here regarding wish to suggest that during the COP28, there is also need to enhance strategy to influence the state actor and ratify treaties favoring to Indigenous people development, but has inadequate implementation. Edna has responded to it. So that is also somehow taken note to it, and then this will be developed in our next session coming on. So if there is no other interventions, queries from the floor, we will be moving towards the wrapping up. Thank you all for your very active participation, and all the I hope you have, this is like very first interaction for towards the COP28. There might be many more coming in, because the way our speaker have presented, it was very vast, very deep, and there might be need to have better like time frame to digesting and come up with other questions. If you have any other questions, please reach us out. You have our all email. Please send that to us. Not only questions, your comments, your recommendation, your suggestion, and so on. That will be taken into our account. And also please follow us with the social media, as I mentioned earlier on that, so that we will remain up to date if we could not manage to have you all online. Regardless of, we really want to have it, but we might not, because if any other means. So with this, we are at almost at the end of our program today. I hope this program was informative, fruitful, and enjoyable, as I think I learned a lot with what has been presented, and also your contribution with your contributions and experiences. So following this program, there will be another exciting webinar on the same topics with the advocating during COP28, which is on 25th of October, a day after tomorrow. That is Friday, and we will be working on the statement development for COP28. Please be there. We would like to have you there, and jointly would like to work on the statement and present our position. With this, I will invite you to join in 25th event as well. So with this, I thank you all for your active participation, our sister for providing warmth and gratitude, connecting us with ourselves, our ancestors and our leaders. And thank you to our speakers, Mr. Still and Edna, Miss Edna. Thank you to our interpreters who had done the amazing job. And thank you to our communication team who have been working very continuously to make this thing happen. But not at last, but not the least, all the FEMI team who have put immense effort to conceive this event, plan, and co-create this space for all of us, and interesting me as a host of this or moderator of this session. With this, FEMI has commitment to, as I mentioned, FEMI has commitment towards the climate change issue, among other Indigenous women's pertinent issue. Please, so we do lots of events based on this. Please remain in touch. We will be updating you time and again. As it is ending now, thank you all of you once again for joining us today. We are looking forward to seeing you on 25 August 2023, which is, October 2023, the day after tomorrow, same time, and to build our collective pathway and agenda. Jailu, Dhanyavad, thank you, gracias. Thank you.